Along the shore were lots of small fishing boats and huge piles of clams and shellfish at the processing plants.
The palafitos here are a traditional aspect of Castro, and in 1960 there was a pretty devastating earthquake that destroyed a lot of the waterfront and a tsunami that followed, and so most of these palafitos are were built after 1960. In Machuque, where we anchored last night, some of the palafitos and some of the buildings in town were over 100 years old. At low tide, this is all a mass of mud flats, and it's not nearly as attractive. The government is trying to encourage people to retain the design and the historical structures of the palafitos here, and so right here they've torn down one and they're building a new palafito on top of the old pilings.
We had a week of exceptionally sunny, warm weather as we sailed the 110-mile length of Chiloé Island. The weather was a whole lot different when it was time to make the 80-mile passage across the Gulf of Corcovado to Puerto Malinca. We would have another week of protected waters and then the exposed sailing around the Gulf of Penis, and then we would be back in sheltered canals.
Today we've been crossing the Gulf of Corcovado from Chiloé Island, about 50 miles across relatively open water, open to the west, to the Pacific, down to a place called Puerto Malinca on Ascension Island. And the Chilean people we met at the marina warned us about this crossing and said that it was one of the roughest of anywhere around here. And this morning we had drizzle and 100% overcast skies, pretty low ceilings, and it looked like it might be a rough one. We had 30 knots, occasionally gusts to 35, some really nice, good following seas, and we had the boat up with the knot meter pegged on 10 knots many times. It's flattened out a bit now, so we've hoisted the mizzen. We have the working jib, single reef main, and the full mizzen, and we're still doing about 7.5 to 8 knots. The sky is clearing now. There's still some big waves out here. The sky is clearing to the south. Our wind is from the north. And we have a fairly narrow entrance to get into Puerto Malinca. It's rocks on either side and looks like about 1/4 of a mile wide. We had great sailing today. It's nice after motoring in these inside channels around Chiloé where there wasn't any wind. It's nice to be out in more open water and have some good sailing.
The anchorage off Puerto Malinca is wide open to the south and to the east. It was a rough night. We were on anchor watch all night long, and then at 4 o'clock in the morning, this small coastal freighter came and anchored directly in front of us. We decided that we might as well leave when they turned up the stereo, and we got to listen to Henry Mancini at 4:30 in the morning. Many mornings we got underway before 5. We found in Chile the winds were strongest between about 10 in the morning and 5 or 6 in the afternoon, and this day was no exception. By 10 o'clock the winds were up to 30, gusting to 35 knots as we sailed toward Port Puyahuapi. The further we sailed into the canals, the lighter the wind got until it just died completely, and we had a light rain and fog and mist. A lot like Southeast Alaska. Puyahuapi is a small village that was started before World War II by 3 German families escaping from Nazi Germany. The carpet factory that the German families started in the late 1930s is still working today and employs most of the villagers of Puyahuapi. This is definitely a low-tech industry. Getting fuel in Puyahuapi isn't quite as simple as in Port Montt. We brought our jerry jugs ashore with the dinghy and then managed to get them down to the beach, into the dinghy and out to the boat. This would be the last fuel stop until Puerto Eden, about 500 miles south, so we wanted to make sure all the tanks were full. Terminus de Puyahuapi is a small resort, a few years old, just 4 miles away from the town of Puyahuapi. We tied the boat up to the dock and enjoyed the beautiful natural hot pools here and a great dinner ashore in the hotel. The faces of Patagonia are ever surprising and ever changing. Last night when we anchored here in Bay Sepulcra on Isla Melchor, about 15 miles southwest of Portagueri. It was raining and gray, and it didn't look anything like this. This morning, there are birds out. It's totally flat calm. There are no sounds other than the birds, and I can hear a waterfall out in the distance. The sun's out. The barometer is still really low. It's about 1,002, which would make me think that we should have stormy weather, but it's gorgeous. Puerto Montt Radio, Yate Mahina Tiare, Whiskey Charlie Delta 5347. Puerto Montt Radio, Mahina Tiare, 45 degrees 17 south, 73 degrees 44 west. Just departing now for Valladares. Communications in Chile are not an option. The Armada insists that you contact them twice a day at 8 in the morning and 8 p.m. by VHF or single sideband radio with your position and estimated time of departure or an estimated time of arrival at your next port or anchorage.